glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from offseason to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. The 49ers stars are back at practice, and the 49ers are getting healthy at exactly the right time because guess what? It's preparation for the Seattle Seahawks time. 49ers got a divisional rival in week one and familiar faces. You got Sam Darnold, you've got Clint Kubiak, you've got all kinds of players who have been back and forth between the 49ers and the Seahawks, and this is one of those rivalries that you live for every single year. But the question marks about the 49ers injury concerns has been something that's been talked about the entire offseason. In fact, it gets tiresome at times to talk about potential injuries. Guys, when are they going to come back? When are they going to be back? Well, guess what? 49ers players are showing up for practice. They are getting healthy at the right time, and with that, a lot of the questions have been alleviated. We now have answers. We know who's going to be available for Seattle. And while all that's going on, Kendrick Bourne is inside the building meeting with the San Francisco 49ers. He posted on social media he was in Santa Clara, and we do know there's a framework of a contract in place. Will the 49ers let him leave Santa Clara without getting a contract? We'll find out. As of time of recording, we have no news on Kendrick Bourne. If something happens, I'll try to report it right away. We'll see what happens. But I think we're going to be able to determine what happens if Kendrick Bourne does sign and why the 49ers feel like they might have room for him. But before we do any of that, a big-time player came back to practice today. And I had been kind of just putting it out there. I thought it was going to happen. I stuck with it. When I was on the Red and Bold show with Mark yesterday, I just kept sticking to it. And a big-time player came back, and we're going to talk about it in 1 second. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating. If you're going to bet 49ers versus Seahawks, bet with FanDuel. Right now, you can put your money on the 49ers, who are the betting favorites, and you can win with FanDuel. Go check it out. They got player props, all kinds of fun stuff with FanDuel, the title sponsor of 49ers Cutback. But the player that came back is Jauan Jennings. And, you know, I had said before, I really did think Jauan Jennings was going to come back. You know, some of the rhetoric surrounding John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan started to make it seem like it wasn't just injury related, but maybe contract related, a combination of both. And I said, hey, if he gets back out there this week, he'll be capable and ready to go. And he's back at practice. And with that comes some stability at wide receiver, because now Brock Purdy has his two top weapons at wide receiver. Jauan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, you know what you're going to get. You got Russell Gage as wide receiver 3. And so you're feeling pretty comfortable now about your weapons at the position. And it had to hinge on Jauan Jennings getting back. And it was a key part for this 49ers offense, because going against Seattle is not an easy task. They've got good cornerbacks. They've got a good secondary. They've got a really good interior defensive line of some speed elements off the edge to rush the passer, and a really good head coach who's also their defensive coordinator. And so you're going to need all hands on deck to be able to deal with the Seattle Seahawks. And now that you have Jauan Jennings, you don't just have a wide receiver that can produce in the passing game, but a wide receiver that can block his butt off in the run game. And if you're going to turn and hand the ball to Christian McCaffrey and Brian Robinson, you need guys that can go out there and block. And this has been a point of emphasis for the 49ers on offense, was they're going to run the ball this season. Point of emphasis on defense is to stop the run. So getting Jauan Jennings back has a multitude of things that point in a positive direction for the 49ers. Number one, it really feels good to have Jauan out there, because that wide receiver room without Brandon Ayuk is a little concerning. Now without Brandon Ayuk and Demarcus Robinson, you needed guys who could convert on third down, who could take some of the pressure off Ricky Pearsall. So that way it's not all on Ricky. I think Ricky's going to have a very good season, but now you've got two formidable wide receivers that teams have to pay attention to. If they don't, we've seen Jauan go for over 200 yards and really cook. And so you can't just leave him one-on-one. He'll win. And so that takes some opportunities, in his direction, help guys like George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey and Ricky Pearsall have opportunities to get open and make some plays. So this was a big, significant return to practice. And he wasn't the only one that came back, but this is the one that everyone's been talking about. This has been on the forefront of everyone's mind. Was Jauan Jennings going to hold out? He's not going to hold out. He's back at practice, and he came back for the bonus day of practice, so that's big. There's even video of him, dapping up John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. Business is business, and football is football, and this is mutually beneficial for Jauan Jennings to be on the field. It's good for the 49ers, and it's good for Jauan Jennings because he has to back up what he did last season, and as long as he can do that, there's going to be a hefty payday for him during the offseason. And whether that's the 49ers or another team that gives it to him, I don't think he cares. He just wants to get paid. He deserves to get paid. He's a good player, but now he's really going to help this team. And now when we're talking about 49ers versus Seahawks, number 15 is going to play a pivotal role in the 49ers' chances to win. But also, starting offensive lineman Dominic Pooney returned to practice. And there have been question marks about Dominic Pooney. Ben Bartch returned last week wearing a big elbow brace. And then you're like, okay, the left side of the line with Ben Bartch and with Trent Williams is figured out. But the right side of the line was still up in the air. You had the young rookie Connor Kobe taking snaps as the starting right guard. And Connor Kobe as a guard is good. Connor Kobe as a starting right guard, it might be a little bit early for that. Going against a defense that is absolutely loaded with Byron Murphy and, with Leonard Williams and these big defensive tackles that could really give people problems, not to mention a guy that moves, like a freak at Jaron Reed. I mean, the dude's extremely talented. Getting Dominic Pooney back stabilizes this offensive line. And you've got an offensive line that's got chemistry. Even though they haven't practiced together very much this offseason, they did practice together last season. Ben Bartch has not been a long-term starter for the 49ers, but he did step in place of Aaron Banks last year. It was pretty seamless with him and Trent Williams in the game and a half that he played. So I think the 49ers are optimistic about this offensive line and what they're going to be able to do to produce together. And it's going to be a key element. Running the football is going to be huge for this football team. And that's one of the reasons you have to have Dominic Pooney. You have to have guys that can create some movement, whether that's horizontal movement or vertical movement. Dominic Pooney can do both. He's also one of the best interior pass rushers. In fact, he's the best pass blocker of the San Francisco 49ers offensive line. And so this is a huge one. He's out there. He's going through full drills. The knee has responded to treatment, and it looks like he's going to be starting at right guard. So we're going to have the starting offensive line for the San Francisco 49ers week 1 against Seattle Seahawks. And this is a thing that needed to happen for them to be able to compete at a high level against a very good defensive front for the Seattle Seahawks. So it's going to be nice to have Dominic Pooney back in there, and he's going to give support to Colton McKivitz. And I think that this is exactly what they needed. This gives Connor Kobe time to continue to get better. This doesn't make Spencer Burford change positions. He can stay out at tackle. It just keeps everything in flow. And we're getting all the 49ers players back all at the right time. Also, starting defensive tackle, Kalia Davis returned. And I said starting defensive tackle because I believe he's going to start week 1 at Seattle next to Jordan Elliott. And he had been nicked up a little bit, missed the third preseason game. And that's always a little bit concerning when it comes to Kalia Davis because he's had off and on injuries, which is frustrating. But this year, for the most part, he stayed healthy. And it didn't seem like it was anything significant. He was working on a side field over the last week and a half. But the fact that he's back now means the 49ers can now go through their full rotation. And that's very important because when you can start with 2 veterans in the game, it kind of sets up your rotation as the game goes. Kalia Davis and Jordan Elliott are your most impactful as far as disruption and havoc that you have along the defensive line from the interior defensive line position. Robert Saleh just talked about pretty extensively in his press conference last week how he believes it's very difficult for interior defensive linemen to translate from college to the NFL game, and the nuances and some of the things that are expected, some of the things that you have to learn and be able to go about your business with. And I think that that is part of the reason that it makes sense for Jordan Elliott and Kalia Davis to start. And then once you get that rotation of Alfred Collins and Jordan Jefferson and CJ West, you've got a solid rotation of defensive linemen that can keep putting pressure on an interior part of an offensive line for the Seattle Seahawks that's going to have a young player playing on the inside for them as well. You know, I mean, they drafted Gray Zabel in round 1, and he's going to be going against, some pretty good defensive linemen for the San Francisco 49ers. So that offensive line is tasked with getting a lot better. Seattle's offensive line has been inconsistent. They've had a lot of injuries over the last several years, and they're looking to get better. And they're going to be running a 49ers kind of system under Clint Kubiak. So having athletic defensive linemen that can move side to side and play against the outside zone scheme, play against the inside zone, the gap, you got to be able to do it all, is something they're going to have to do. They're also going to have to prove that they can take on the double team. So Kalia Davis, Jordan Elliott, they're going to be tasked with it first. But having Kalia Davis back is really going to help. And then we'll see what happens when we get those big defensive linemen that the 49ers have continued to add, which I think is going to be very huge. And that's exactly what the 49ers needed, was those guys to come in and play well. Now, Kalia Davis isn't the only defensive lineman that came back, but Etor Gross-Matos also came back. And this is extremely significant because of what it means for the 49ers pass rush. And Gross-Matos being injured so long was definitely a little bit frustrating for the 49ers. You know, I mean, they were wanting him to come back and wanting him to reacclimate a while ago, but they've been kind of simulating practice and working a way to work him back in, and he's going to be very significant as far as the NASCAR package. So when you invest so heavy in defensive linemen that can stop the run, but are developmental pass rushers, it means on third down, you can't have those guys on the field rushing the passer. They're not ready yet. But when you have a defensive end, and we've seen Robert Saleh do this with Eric Armstead, when Saleh was first in San Francisco, then we've seen D'Amico Ryans do it with Arden Key. We've seen him do it with Charles Omenihu, is they move that guy inside and allow them to rush from the interior part of the defensive line. And what it is those guys, as long as they're big and strong enough, if they have an athleticism advantage over the guards, it makes it difficult for those guys. So getting these matchups on the inside for Etor Gross-Matos and Mikael Williams is going to be huge, because what it does, it puts pressure on those offensive guards to move laterally. With them moving laterally, it means the chances of giving help on the outside, where you brought in Bryce Huff, you have Nick Bosa, it makes it a little bit more difficult. If you're going to double Nick Bosa, you're going to chip Bryce Huff, then who's going to occupy both interior pass rushers along that offensive line? Are you going to put a guard in a one-on-one situation? Maybe a guard who's not as fleet-footed, doesn't have the reach. Is he going to be able to handle Etor Gross-Matos? So that's why this is so significant. 49ers want to stop the run on early downs, which a lot of teams are probably going to try to throw the ball a little bit on first down against the 49ers, which is fine, because you put yourself in a 2nd and 10, then all of a sudden your run on 2nd down may not be as effective, and all of a sudden you're at 3rd and 7. It can put you behind the 8 ball. So Robert Saleh is trying to force offense's hands and make them be willing to just run into the teeth of your defense or throw and run the risk of facing 3rd and longs, where then he can put it out all of his pass rushers, Nick Bosa, Bryce Huff, Etor Gross-Matos, and really put pressure on you and potentially get off the field a lot on 3rd down. So Gross-Matos' impact is going to be felt huge. The same way that Kalia Davis's impact is felt as far as the 1st and 2nd down, but also the starting reps that he's going to get. but also the rotation that it creates. Every time you have all your bodies, you get guys who can continue to rotate through, and you can keep guys fresh. So Gross-Matos will be able to do that. Now, how many effective snaps is he going to have playing base defensive end? That I don't know. I don't know exactly what his health is at, his stamina, conditioning. Is he going to be able to take on 20, 22 snaps to start the season? I don't know. But can you get him 10 to 12 pass rush snaps from the interior defensive line? That could be very interesting. And also with that athleticism, allows you to run stunts, and some blitzes with some of these guys falling off and playing zone coverage. I think that it's going to be a lot of fun. And Etor Gross-Matos coming back is huge. And the 49ers just keep adding to the amount of guys that are going to be able to just come after the quarterback and get in Sam Darnold's face. Let's not forget, Sam Darnold takes a lot of sacks. He was sacked over 40 times last year. This is something you can do. You can get to Sam Darnold and in drives, but you have to have the bodies to do it. And that's the one thing about Robert Saleh. He's bringing in guys that can absolutely get it done. So Gross-Matos coming back is huge. Russell Gage also returned to practice. And Russell Gage was re-signed to the 49ers 53-man roster. And he had been dealing with a little bit of a knee sprain. And he had gotten hurt in that practice, missed the last preseason game. Then when he was released, there was question marks about was he even going to come back to this team or was he good enough? Well, John Lynch was very confident about how good he was. They signed him back to the 53-man roster, and now he's returned to practice, and he looks like he's on track to be ready to go this week against the Seattle Seahawks. So the wide receiver room is really starting to change and take shape for the 49ers in week 1 versus the Seattle Seahawks. Now, one thing that I've been saying for a little while is I thought Russell Gage was going to be wide receiver 3 for the 49ers when they played Seattle Seahawks. I still think that rings true. You've got Jauan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, Russell Gage make the most sense as the top 3 guys when you're in 11 personnel. Then you have Sky Moore, who's going to be used more as a gadget guy, kind of go out there and get some reps. He's still learning this offense. But he's going to handle the punt and kick return duties. And then he's going to be available for some push passes and some jet sweeps and some quick screens. That's going to be kind of his part of the game. Then you're going to elevate Marquez Valdez-Scantling more than they're going to do it. They're going to bring him up. Lost my words there for a second. But MVS is going to come up, and this is going to be a guy that can come in, spell Jauan Jennings at X at times. He can come in, he can push the ball vertical. But also, if you want to, there's sometimes it's smart to go 11 personnel with MVS at X and then put Jauan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall at the Z and at the slot where they operate very well. So he's going to give them some flexibility within this offense. And I think MVS is going to take the Jordan Watkins role because Watkins still hasn't returned to practice. So he is the one guy that wasn't out there and dressed for practice of all the guys returning. And we knew that when he got hurt, they had said it could be a month or more. Kyle Shanahan said he was at risk of missing week 1. And with Kendrick Bourne in the building, I think there's a real likelihood that if they do sign Kendrick Bourne to the active 53-man roster, the corresponding move could be to put Jordan Watkins on the IR. And it's simple for a couple of reasons. Yes, we want Jordan Watkins to get better. We want the young rookie to get reps and be able to play. But Kyle Shanahan talked about the fact that if he wouldn't have got hurt, he really had an opportunity to help the 49ers early on in the season. They needed him, and we've seen the explosiveness. But if he's not going to be available for week 1, maybe he's not going to be available for week 2, then you just have to make sure you have the bodies to be able to get out there and get the reps. So you go ahead and you move him to move him to the IR. And you potentially bring him back later. Jacob Cowing's on the IR. You don't have to bring those guys back. But if you have an injury at the position or you feel like Jordan Watkins could, outplay somebody that you have, then you go ahead and you make the move. But the 49ers are trying to put together the best 53-man roster and the best game day roster every single week. And is Jordan Watkins going to be ready? Did this, injury stunt his growth as far as what he could produce early in the season? Not what he's going to do in his career, but just early in the season, how does that hurt him in the long term. So I think that there's a chance Jordan Watkins could be the corresponding move if the 49ers do sign Kendrick Bourne. And that's an if. We don't know yet. As of time of recording, we're not sure what happens with Bourne. But, I mean, I think if you look at the 49ers wide receiver room and now what it could look like with Jauan Jennings being back, I think you're feeling pretty comfortable about this wide receiver room. So let's just talk about it for a second. So your top three wide receivers, Jauan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, Russell Gage. Then if you have MVS come up, you have MVS there as well. He's the fourth wide receiver. Sky Moore ends up being number 5. And if you sign Kendrick Bourne, you have 6. With your elevation of MVS, you could run 6 guys on game day if you wanted. I don't know if the 49ers are going to do that. I also don't know if Kendrick Bourne is ready to roll week 1. That's going to be one of the things they're going to have to figure out. But it would go from being a question mark, right? A wide receiver room that had lots of question marks, lots of young players they were going to count on, to pretty veteran laden. I mean, when you looked at it, you've got Jauan Jennings, who's been in the league for a while. Russell Gage, been in the league for a long time. MVS, same thing. Sky Moore's been in the league. He's still on his first contract, but he's going into year 4. Kendrick Bourne, 30 years old, been in the league for a long time. So it went from really young to pretty veteran laden with guys who know how to get things done. And I think that could be very impressive to see them turn this thing around. But it's good to see them getting healthy and getting all their guys back. They have all their running backs back. They have all their offensive linemen back. So we know they're still going to have some guys that are going to come back during the season. But the guys that we're expecting to be back are coming back. So the only guys that we're not going to see until the middle part of the season, Brandon Ayuk, Malik Mustafa, Kevin Givens, probably a little bit later. Week 4, we'll see Demarcus Robinson. He'll be back. If they need Jacob Cowing, they can bring him back later. But for the most part, the 49ers are getting extremely healthy. I think if you're looking at this roster and you're saying, hey, which one of the 49ers starters are they missing going into the season? I would say there's 2 starters legitimately you're missing and a key backup that you're missing. Ayuk and Malik Mustafa are starters that you are going to be missing for the early part of the season. And then Demarcus Robinson would have been a big contributor as wide receiver 3. And imagine when Demarcus Robinson comes back, how good that 49ers wide receiver room gets. And once Brandon Ayuk is back, it gets even better. So I like what the 49ers are doing, putting this together and building a team, that's going to be pretty competitive week 1. They are going to have some rookies that they're going to have to count on. But one of the key things you had to have was getting these guys back in uniform at practice. That was the only way that they were going to be able to compete week 1 against Seattle. I mean, you could have, you could win without, guys at some key positions, but you have to make sure you can go out and get it done. And the 49ers definitely are doing that with the returns that they're having at several positions. It's huge news for the 49ers, getting those guys back, those guys that can compete, those guys that can make plays. And Jauan Jennings is going to be a big reason why. I think it also just goes a long way to kind of getting the energy back up. I mean, could you imagine just getting all these guys back? It's like you just made a big trade, right? You knew Jauan was potentially coming back, but you needed something to happen. You needed somebody to come in and make a big play for your football team. And now you get Jauan back week 1, and that energy that Brock Purdy is going to be able to feel, knowing he can count on Jauan Jennings, knowing that he can count on Ricky Pearsall, and that kind of just frees up everybody else to be able to kind of do some things that you need them to do. So it's huge for the 49ers. It's huge getting these guys back. And now it sets up everything, because now when you look at the starting offensive or starting groups, you could figure it out for the most part. I did not even mention that Upton Stout is practicing. Upton Stout is looking like he's going to be ready to go. So, is Upton Stout going to start? I don't think we've gotten a full decision on Upton Stout or Marquis Siegel, and maybe Kyle Shanahan will let it out of the bag. If I was him, I wouldn't. I wouldn't want Seattle to know who to prepare for. I don't want them to know if it's going to be Upton Stout or Marquis Siegel, Upton Stout at nickel. I don't want them to know if it's going to be Chase Lucas at nickel or if De'Amaro Lenore is going to move inside and out. I don't want them to know that. I want them to have to prepare for all those elements. I don't want them to know if Marquis Siegel is going to start at safety or if it's going to be Jair Brown. So I wouldn't say anything if I was Kyle Shanahan, so I don't expect him to put those things out there. We'll probably find out on game day, which is less than a week away, which is crazy to say. But let's just go through real quick the starting lineup, update it. Had a pretty good idea doing the depth chart videos, but we'll just keep it here. At center, you got Jake Brendel. At guard, you're going to have Ben Barch and Dominic Pooney. It's happening now. Colt McKivitz and Trent Williams are going to be your starting offensive tackles. At tight end, you've got all-pro George Kittle. He will be the starting tight end. And when you're in 12 personnel, Luke Farrell will be in there as the second tight end. Of course, Brock Purdy at quarterback. You got Christian McCaffrey as the starting running back, Kyle Juszczyk as the fullback. You got Brian Robinson as the backup to kind of fill in when you need him. And then at wide receiver, Jauan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, and Russell Gage. And when you're in 21 personnel, it's going to be Jauan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall. When you're in 12 personnel, it's going to be Jauan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall. This is great news for the 49ers. Two guys that could go get it done. And then you have stable veterans behind them that can make some things happen. Russell Gage, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I like the way they've put this thing together. And, I feel comfortable with the wide receiver room now that Jauan Jennings is playing. And, I know there's been a lot of conversation about the wide receiver room and where it sits and how good it is. I think it's in the mix, to be pretty consistent. That's all you're wanting to be as a run-first offense. Now, when you look at the defense, it's going to be Nick Bosa at defensive end. Mikael Williams, I expect Mikael Williams to start at defensive end. The two defensive tackles, Jordan Elliott and Kalia Davis. At linebacker, D. Winters and Fred Warner with Luke Gifford as the Sam backer. That's what I think is going to happen. I haven't counted, Tatum Bethune out, but I'm going to lean towards Luke Gifford because he got all those reps and just kind of listening to what Robert Saleh has been saying. At corner, I think they're going to go with Renardo Green and De'Amaro Lenore on the outside, and I think they're going to go with Upton Stout at the nickel corner, and that might scare a lot of people with him not getting reps against other teams. But I think that's what they're going to do, but I don't think they're going to tell anyone either. And then at safety, you've got Jason Pinnock, who definitely is going to be a starter, and it's either going to be Marquis Siegel or Jair Brown. Will they start two rookies in the secondary? If they do, it's going to be a lot of fun seeing them go against Jackson Smith and Jigba and Cooper Kupp, and that Seattle wide receiver room. I think it sets up really nice for the 49ers. And it all starts because players come back and you're getting healthy at the right time, and it's been an offseason that's been marred by injury, just so many. But, I kept saying, and even a month ago, I was saying, the good news is, though, these injuries aren't creeping into the regular season as far as new injuries, right? You knew you had Malik. You knew you had Brandon Ayuk. You knew you were probably going to have the suspension for Demarcus Robinson. Those were going to go into the regular season. But do we not have any other ones going to the regular season, right? Etor Gross-Matos looked like he might all of a sudden. Now he's not. No, Dominic Pooney didn't go into the regular season. Like, you're just catching break after break after break as far as long-term injuries. And that's huge news because you want to be full strength when you go out there. And so even though there's been so much talk about injuries in San Francisco, barring something happening this week, and hopefully nothing does, the 49ers are going to roll into Seattle, and they are going to have almost everyone that they anticipated they were going to have at this time. They might even have more guys than they expected because they keep bringing guys in like MVS and potentially Kendrick Bourne. But it's a good time for them to get healthy, and it's happening at the right time. Now, do you wish you had some of that practice time to get all these guys together and kind of get more of a chemistry and a flow? Absolutely. You'd love for everyone to stay healthy the entire time and just be ready to roll when the season starts. But that's not NFL. That's not realistic. That just doesn't happen. Guys get nicked up. Guys get hurt. The good news is when you line up at 105 on Sunday, you want to be as healthy as you were supposed to be. And I think the 49ers are pretty darn close. You're never 100%. when it comes to playing NFL football, and you're just hoping that you can stay as healthy as possible. So great news for the San Francisco 49ers. They get back Jauan Jennings at practice, Dominic Pooney, Kalia Davis. He's back at practice. Etor Gross-Matos back at practice. Upton Stout is back at practice. Russell Gage. They've got Kendrick Bourne in the building. It's a really good time for the 49ers to kind of get it all together. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network. Please give it a 5-star rating. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.